Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Exploring Brain and Mind. And I've got a very special guest today. He was my NLP trainer and timeline therapy trainer, and I have a lot to thank him for. That was my foundation of becoming the person that I am today. He also worked with a lot of people in business and leadership to improve their performance. And his name is Daniel Tolson. Welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been many years, and I was speaking to one of your classmates recently, coming up 8 years since I was in the UK doing the NLP
Wow.
and Timeline Therapy training. So it's been a very long time.
It has indeed. Yes, yes. I know my training was 2018 in the last few days of April, and it was a very special few days.
And it's lovely to see you. And Nini and I follow you closely on social media, and you've become a phenomenal leader. So I appreciate you inviting me to be on your podcast. Thank you.
And thank you. Daniel, you've been working with people in business and organizations, leadership positions to improve their performance for a long time. What has been changes you have been noticing with regards to leadership?
Well, times are changing really quickly. And what I'm finding is that the most successful leaders are those ones who have the ability to adapt, adjust, and respond to change. And many years ago when I got into the field, change seemed to happen so slowly. But post-pandemic, it's like the whole world has sped up. And it's the leaders who can adapt and adjust and respond to that change seem to be getting ahead really quickly. And I was reading a report pre-pandemic, and what they said was the leaders of the future had to develop emotional intelligence skills. And I think they were right, because what I see now post-pandemic are those leaders who are emotionally intelligent are the ones who are leading the field.
That's a important observation. Yes, I found emotional intelligence also something that is a must for leaders, be it in business, be it in big organizations, but even I don't really want to mention politics, but it's for politics and relationship building in general. It's so important.
Well, imagine a politician who actually understood the people. Wouldn't that be a change?
Oh, yes.
Wouldn't that be a change? A politician who actually lived in the real world, somebody who could understand the challenges of the average person. And today, politicians are not within arm's reach of the general population. They live in their little castles, they go to their little rooms and they hide from everybody. They're not people anymore. They're detached. And leaders who are emotionally aware, first of all, they have a very high level of self-awareness. They understand the problems that they face, but they're also very high in social awareness, and they have an acute understanding of what other people are facing. And so rather than leading with their own agenda, a politician would never lead with their own agenda. They'd actually start to lead with the agenda of the people. And that would change the world very quickly.
Absolutely.
And I think if there was a test for anybody to become a politician, I think that they should first go through an emotional quotient assessment to make sure that they know themselves and they know others. That would be a transformation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That would be a brilliant starting point. I also come to think that emotional intelligence, and especially like self-awareness, is the foundation of it all. If you don't have your self-awareness, how can you then start building up on that with like self-management, social awareness, and the social skills that are required? I find the self-awareness is the foundation. Like every house needs a foundation, and the self-awareness is the foundation of emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Dr. Daniel Siegel, he said, awareness precedes change. And you can't make a change until you've first had awareness. So it is the foundation. You have to be so self-aware if you want to become a leader. And in some of the things that you and I learned in NLP, we said that the third principle of success is sensory acuity, which is also self-awareness. It's being able to understand your responses and how people respond to you. And we make subtle shifts from moment to moment. But for a lot of people, it's so far out of their awareness. Harvard University said that 95% of the world's population claim to be self-aware. Yet in reality, only about 10 to 15% are.
Yeah,
So
I believe
if we're
that.
talking about foundations, 10 to 15% of people have solid foundations. What's happening to everybody else?
Yeah.
So we've got to start with awareness. And from there, we can build up on that. And they're the strong foundations. Definitely.
But that's actually, I'm quite shocked to hear that 95% of people think that they're self-aware. Wow, I would not have thought that. Because considering there is so much actually involved with self-awareness. It's not just, it's all your filters, all your senses, all your what's happening in the moment, what's happening with the emotions, what is triggering you if you read something that is not kind of agreeing with you. How many just respond or react rather than think, hang on a minute, do I actually really need to respond? People are not aware that they have a choice if they want to react or respond at all. Some they get triggered and they just fire it out. So, it's so important that you can control how you react, respond, if at all.
If we broke it down in just to a couple of key areas, the first thing in that we have to be aware of are our behaviours. How do you approach problems and challenges? How do you approach people and contacts? How do you approach the pace and the consistency in the environment? How do you approach policy and compliance? They're basic behaviours, but for the majority of us, including myself, there's so many blind spots. I've been working on myself for many years, and what I've learned is that the more I learn about myself, the less I actually know. I start to uncover all these blind spots. I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that about myself. So we've got to get through the behaviours. We've then got to have a look at the intrinsic motivators. Elke, what's scary to me is there was studies done years ago in Harvard University, and they said that 97% of the graduates were graduating from Harvard without having goals for the future. These people were graduating from the MBA program. They're going to run our business, they're going to run our cities, they're going to run our countries. Yet 97% didn't have clear goals and plans for the attainment for the future. It only left 3% of the population who actually had clear set goals.
Yeah.
Imagine that. So you start to put the puzzle together. 95% claim to be emotionally aware, yet only 10 to 15% are. 97% don't have goals. If you don't have a goal for your future, you have no future.
Yeah.
Which means 3% do. But out of that 3%, only 1% of the population review their goals on a daily basis. So we've got to understand, well, what actually drives me? What's my intrinsic motivator? How do I respond to money? How do I respond to power? How do I respond to education? How do I respond to people? We've got to understand all of that. Also, there's how we think. Do we have biases towards people? Do we have biases towards action? Do we have a bias towards systems? And these things are so far below the surface that most of us have never considered what they are. So I've got to put my hand up and say, I'm one of those people who claim to be emotionally aware. And at the same time, I've got to admit I'm in that part of the population, the 10 to 15%. I'd like to be there, but I don't think I am. I'm still working towards it.
Yeah, I think I wouldn't put myself necessarily in the 95%, but well, somewhere in the 95%, but I'm not really in the 10% either. There's always something that's coming up where I think, hang on a minute, I need to reflect on that. I got a lot better, I think, with regards to finding my biases and where I still have our areas of improvement. It is so important as well that you're not saying, oh yeah, I've done this and this and that, and now I'm self-aware, and that's all that done, and now I can just leave it. It's a continuous process, isn't it?
It's like the gym. You can't go to the gym once and say that you're fit.
No.
You can't eat a salad once and say I'm healthy. They're things that you got to do. Imagine if you could just wash once. I've had a bath, I've brushed my teeth, and I never have to do it again. It's the same with self-awareness. It's ongoing. And I think we've all had that experience where I've been teaching NLP for more than a decade. And every time I teach the program, it's like I'm relearning it. And I think to myself, my gosh, I teach this all the time, but I've actually forgotten it because I haven't been applying it. And that's when I say, well, I think I'm one of those people who are emotionally aware. Then I realize I've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, it's definitely a work in progress, and it's something that we have to continuously work on.
Yeah, it's a working progress. It's like goal setting. We like to set goals, but by setting a goal doesn't mean we're going to achieve the goal. And I think a lot of people think just because you set a goal, you're going to achieve it. No. I learned the hard way. When I was 16, I set a goal to become an Australian champion athlete. And I thought that I was going to become an Australian champion athlete that year. I was going to go from zero to hero in a very sharp and short piece of time. But the first year, I broke my nose. Okay, that was a setback. The next year, I ruptured a posterior cruciate ligament. Okay, now I need an operation. The doctor told me never ride again. So I went and rode again and I blew out my knee again. And I'm having another operation. The next year I've got a broken arm. The year after that I've got torn ligaments. And the goal that I set took me 10 years to achieve. Because at the start of my journey, I was so ignorant. I just assumed that I wasn't going to get injured. I just assumed that I was going to have no obstacles at all. I thought I was going to put my foot on the accelerator pedal and become the hero overnight. But I had to learn. And then every time I had a fall, I had to learn how to get back up. And every time I got back up, there was somebody who was a stronger competitor. So I had to refine my approach. And when we look at goal setting, we realize that if the goal is important, we do whatever it takes to achieve it. But we have to learn so much about ourselves on the way to achieve the goal. And when we're learning about ourselves, we've got to learn good habits, but we've also got to unlearn bad habits. And I realized on the way to my goal, I had a lot of bad habits. I'd like to sleep in. I'd like to be lazy. I'd like to go out and drink the night before a competition, then figure out why I couldn't win the competition the next day. Well, I was hungover. But every time I had one of those learnings, I could reset and go again. So we've got to learn. We've got a lot to learn. And learning's fun. You learn a lot.
Learning is absolute fun. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and I also consider myself as someone who cannot imagine to retire. I only retire if I do my last breath, and then I move on to the next level.
I think retirement for a lot of people is an escape. After 40 years, I can get out of this death sentence of a job. If it was your life's purpose, you'd never want to retire from that. Helping people. Nini and I, we want to improve the health of 100,000 people by next year. It's a big goal. I probably won't achieve it, but I'll learn a lot on the way, and then I'll implement those learnings the next year.
Yeah.
And I'll get better. And it might take me a decade to hit that, but it doesn't mean it's not worth it. But if I want to retire from that, I'm probably doing the wrong thing from the start.
Mm.
And I think with self-awareness, they say today that people of my generation are going to have 40 different careers throughout their life. And a lot of people go, 40 careers, that's a lot. Well, I think that's okay, because sometimes to figure out what we like, we have to learn about what we don't like. And it's the same in a relationship. I think relationships are like a game of Dungeons and Dragons. You got to kiss a lot of dragons before you get the princess. And it was like my wife. I dated a lot of other women before I met her. Now, there was nothing wrong with the other women. They were all lovely women. They just weren't the right ones for me.
Mm.
And it's the same with our careers. We've got to try different careers. We've got to try different approaches. Even living in our hometowns, I believe that you live a long way away from your birthplace.
Absolutely,
and we've got to
yes.
find the place that suits us the most.
Yeah.
And that's fun. Comes with all those good stories.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I don't see a problem with having different careers, or you need to, it's kind of part of the way to find yourself. Not just what you want to do, who you want to be, but to find yourself.
It was when I was 19, I got into the field of real estate. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do at that stage. And my uncle said to me, Danny boy, come and get into real estate. I'll teach you how to set goals. I'll teach you how to invest in real estate. I'll teach you how to live life on your terms, make a lot of money, and so you've got more choices. Now, at 19, I didn't have a lot on the horizon, but I went and worked for him. And he fulfilled his promise, and he showed me how to set and achieve goals. He showed me how to communicate. He showed me how to sell. And what I realized was that he was just giving me a lot of life skills. And he said to me, if you start real estate and you don't like it, you are your own man. You don't owe me anything. You're free to go at any time. And when you're ready to go, just come and tell me, and you're free to go. So I stayed there for about 3 years. I bought my first investment property. I bought my second investment property. And then I realized that's not what I wanted to do for life. And so I thought I'd better go and do some self-discovery. So I packed my bags and I travelled over to the United Kingdom. And I landed into Heathrow, and my friend was living in Ascot. And I went and lived in Ascot and worked in Windsor. And I also worked down in Thorpe Park. And I stayed in the UK for about 6 months. And really, as I reflect on it now, I was really there doing self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
What is it that I like? What is it that I don't like? What am I attracted to? What causes me to disengage? What boosts my energy? What zaps my energy? And by the time I'd had 6 months in the UK, I then moved over to America. And I knew so much more about myself. And then eventually, 3 months later, when I got back to Australia, I started to make better decisions. And I made better decisions because I had more information of what I liked and what I didn't like. And it was a lot of fun, the self-discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I remember sitting in the hostels at night by myself in front of the fire, just figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. Then I met a lot of other people on the journey who were doing many different things, and I went, wow, I'd love to try that. I even went and worked on a dairy farm. I thought I was going to be a farmer, and I quit after 24 hours. I realised that's not what I want to do.
It's hard work, I'm sure.
It is. And it's not to take away from anybody else's experience. It just wasn't right for me. I've got uncles and aunties who are farmers,
Mm-hmm.
and they love it. They wouldn't have it any other way. But I like a little bit of a cleaner environment.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was thinking of our farmers. They don't have it easy at the moment. But yeah, diverted. My thoughts are kind of drifting away a bit into some different area. But yeah, no,
Well, farmers,
self-discovery is great.
look, farmers, we're talking about mental health before. In Australia, some of the highest suicide rates in the world are for farmers.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Farmers are doing it really, really tough. And my parents were actually farmers, and when they got married in the 70s, they went and started their early life on a farm. And by the mid to late 70s, they had lost everything. And they had to walk off the farm and start a new life. But that pattern is still there decades later. So maybe I could have been a farmer. My dad was a farmer, but it's not for me.
Oh, yeah. Thinking of going back to emotional intelligence and brain and mind, and how do you feel about AI coming in big on the scene now?
I love it. I love it. I think what we've got to understand about AI is that we're just teaching a machine how to think and feel like a human. And that's how I like to think about AI. It's just a tool. It's just like a shovel or a hammer or a spatula or a spade or a knife, a fork or a spoon. It's just a tool. And it enables us to do things faster. And it also makes our life easy. And I'm loving it. I am knees deep in AI, developing technologies, and it's made my life easy. But in terms of emotional intelligence, what it can do for emotional intelligence is we have been able to help people leap forward. You know, what I say is that today with AI, we can learn more about ourselves in 20 minutes than previously in 20 years of self-discovery. This is how deep AI can take us. And along with AI, we have machine learning. So the machine, the computers learn. We also have advanced algorithms. And we can give these computers and machines mathematical formulas to follow. And it can reveal so much about personality. Things that used to take me literally an hour to do, with the mind, I can do in 90 seconds today and get so
Wow,
much more information. So I love it.
that
I'm
is
excited.
that is pretty impressive. That is pretty impressive. Impressive. Sorry. I know that you've been working on some programs to help people find out more about health, about personality and things, including AI.
Mm.
And I have been testing out one of your programs. I've done actually another one with Vicky Henderson
Mm-hmm.
a few months ago. I can't remember when it was, but that was really insightful as well. And I know that you like to get the proceedings done, the reading the script and thing on the phone, but because of my eyesight, I find it hard to do that. What I usually do is when I'm on the PC and doing it, I have the microphone on the camera and I go really close to the screen when I read because I need to be close to the screen when I read the script. So I wonder, if I should try it on the phone at some point just to see what the difference would be.
Mm. Well, the
But
beautiful part
yeah.
about this technology, we're actually using vocal biomarker technology.
Mhm.
So when we do analysis on people today, we're not asking questions anymore. We're not asking them to respond yes or no answer. We're not asking them to put things in hierarchy. Our technology is analysing the brainwave frequencies in your voice. And then it's linking those brainwave frequencies to emotion and personality. So in a 90-second voice recording, we are capturing 1,440 emotional triggers. In that 90 seconds, we can detect 14,000 health and genetic issues. And it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter what language you speak in, it's just capturing the brainwave frequencies inside of the voice. So if you count from 1 to 100, or if you do your ABCs, if you read the script, that's not as important as just the capturing of the brain waves inside of the voice. And that's how this technology
Wow.
is revolutionizing health. We can detect Parkinson's disease and Alzheimer's in a 4-second voice sample. We can detect anxiety and depression in a 4-second voice clip. And it's happening so fast because of the machine learning, because of the vocal biomarker technology, and the introduction of AI. These things that used to take us hundreds of hours to achieve, we now get the results in 90 seconds.
That is, yeah, I'm stunned. I'm stunned about the figures that you're giving me there. Whoa.
It's mind-blowing.
Pretty powerful. And that would that could revolutionize the health sector greatly as well, with diagnostics and stuff.
Yes, absolutely. In India, there's people using the technology that we use. And some of these hospitals in India, one hospital might have to serve a population of a couple million people. You know, in the UK, maybe one hospital serves a population of 30, 40 or 50,000. But in India, you might have 2 million people in the population. Mm-hmm. Some of these hospitals see up to 6,000 outpatients every single day. So for these parts of the world that have to triage who's important and who's not, it's incredibly hard. So what they're using now is they're using this vocal biomarker technology. And before somebody comes to the hospital, they do a vocal health screening from their mobile device. Once their results come back to the doctor, and it happens in seconds, they can then triage them. So, for example, we can detect people who are at high risk for suicide. And if somebody's at high risk for suicide, you want to be able to prioritise their healthcare.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So the technology can see these patterns in human voice and emotion. And then with our systems, we can give them prioritised healthcare. And so we've developed 2 tools. The first tool is to detect health imbalances in 90 seconds. That's how fast it is. And I was talking to Vicky Henderson today.
Oh, right.
And if you wanted to get anything from a doctor in 90 seconds, it would only be your bill from the doctor.
Yes.
She said, in this country, you might even die before you get to see the doctor.
Yeah.
And we're doing remote health screenings like you did. You did directly from your device anywhere in the world. And within a split second, we get the results. So we've really simplified the process. It's so easy now. There's no needles, there's no knives, there's no x-rays, there's no dyes, there's nothing invasive.
Mm-hmm.
And we can do that in 90 seconds. And today, if you want me to, I'm going to take you through your report and we're going to have a look at what's called the alignment assessment.
Yes, please. Yes, please. Let's do this.
Okay. Well, I think before we begin, I think we should start by saying that everybody wants better health. And the reason why I say everybody wants better health, because I've never met somebody who says they want to have worse health. Everybody says, I want to be fitter, I want to be stronger, I want to be healthier. And so what we know is that not everybody can access the right healthcare. Now, when it comes to holistic health, and when I trained you in NLP and certified you as a timeline therapy practitioner, you are actually a holistic healthcare provider. And what holistic health is that you're working alongside the medical system and you're providing complementary care. Yeah. So when I look at holistic health, I look at 4 areas. I look at our physical health. I look at our emotional health. I look at our mental health. And I also include our spiritual health, because I believe that we're all spiritual beings. Yeah. And we all have a life purpose. And a lot of people, for their whole life, they ask, why am I here? What am I doing on this planet? What's the purpose of all of this? And if we don't have a purpose in life, it doesn't matter how fit we are, doesn't matter how good our emotional or mental health is, life is dull. Mm-hmm. So when I look at holistic health, I'm looking at the health of the body, the emotions, the mind, and the spirit. And we call that holistic health. Now, within holistic health, what we've got to understand is that our holistic health, our physical health, also influences our emotional health. So let's say we're feeling anxious. Let's say we're feeling depressed. When you feel anxious or depressed, does your physical energy go up or down?
Down.
It goes down.
Yeah. Down.
And people are confused. They're like, but I'm fit and healthy, but my energy is so low. Well, these have a bidirectional response. Also with our emotional health and our mental health. Some people can have a very balanced approach to receiving emotional information from the brain, where others might not be able to process it effectively. A lot of people repress their feelings. They say, oh, I don't want to deal with that right now. I might just put it over there and deal with it another day. And they bury the emotions deep down inside themselves. Also with our health, we also look at the mental components. A lot of people today are feeling stressed. I thought life was going to get easier, Elk. When I was 18, I thought life's going to get easier. Year after year, it got harder. And just like you're a parent, I'm a parent. And life becomes more complex. And then we throw into it business. Okay, now I want to be a parent. I want to be a husband. Now I want to be a business owner. And so we look at our mental health, and stress is killing people. We also want to have a look at spiritual health. And there's two components of spiritual health that I look at is courage. Like what we're doing today, Elk, it takes a lot of courage to go on a podcast because you've got to open yourself up. I'm going to share my ideas with the world, and there's a good chance somebody's going to disagree with me and criticize me. And a lot of people won't go on a podcast or do public speaking because they're afraid of criticism. But if we've got courage, if we've got a lot of courage, we're going to try a lot of new things. Mm-hmm. If we've got great levels of courage and we try and fail, we're going to pick ourselves back up and we're going to go again. But there's also another word that starts with the letter P, and it's called procrastination. And a lot of people are going to do something tomorrow. I'm going to lose weight tomorrow. I'm going to start my diet tomorrow. I'm going to hand in my resignation tomorrow. I'm going to start saving money tomorrow. But a lot of people procrastinate, and that impacts their spirit. Mm-hmm. So when I look at holistic health, I'm looking at all of these factors. Now, if you went to the hospital, if you went to your doctor, the doctor, and this is true, the Journal of American Medicine reported that 97% of the population who go to their doctor for stress, anxiety, and depression get turned away. 97% of the population get turned away.
That's a lot. Wow.
And only 3% get support. And so in the field of holistic health, you and I are able to help the 97% of the population that the medical system can't. And I'm not saying it's the medical system's job. It's not. They're not set up to do it. But we are. So when we go through your alignment assessment today, we're looking at 4 critical areas: physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health.
Okay.
We're also going to have a look at 11 factors. We're going to have a look at your sleep quality. 50% of the world's population are sleep deprived. We're going to have a look at the health of your immune system. We're going to have a look at your levels of chronic fatigue. We're going to have a look at your ability to process emotions, your frequent emotion, your core emotion. We're going to have a look at your levels of anxiety, depression, stress, and burnout. We're also going to have a look at your levels of courage and procrastination. And we're getting all of that information from a 90-second voice analysis.
That is pretty impressive. It really is.
Before we get into it, Elke, I think I know the answer already, but I want to hear it from you. If you went to the doctor, your general practitioner, would they be able to do a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual health checkup in 90 seconds?
Sorry, I'm barging in, but that's a pretty straight no.
If you went to your general practitioner, would they be able to test your level of sleep quality?
No.
No. would they be able to tell you what your frequent and core emotions are?
No,
Would they be able to measure and tell you what the root cause of your anxiety or depression is?
no. I think I
No.
have to answer to no to all those,
No.
to look at all your 11 markers there.
And that's why I invented this, is because these are the 11 things that people are truly struggling with. And when we look at Western medicine is attending to the symptomology, where in Eastern medicine, we're getting to the root cause. And I have been in the past diagnosed with depression, and I went to the psychologist and they gave me medicine. I took the medicine for depression and I felt like a zombie. I felt worse. I felt numb, but I still had all that negative thought inside of my mind.
One of the things with the medicine and thing is that they are more, it's like with the weeds, you rip off the leaves, but the roots, they stay. And with what those pills do, they just rip out they'll deal with the surface, but they don't deal with the roots. So you will still be the same, feel the same if you just take the pills. Even they numb the feelings, the emotions, but they won't sort it out.
No. We have 60,000 thoughts per day. 60,000. 95% are on repeat and 80% are negative. And that pill that they give you doesn't change the way you think.
Yeah.
And it only masks temporarily how you feel. But all that negativity is still in the mind. There's nothing smart in that pill that gets to the root cause.
Yeah.
And that's why I got into this field, specifically with the NLP that I taught you, is we get to the root cause. And now with this technology, because people's level of awareness is lower than it used to be, this technology takes them to the root cause. They don't have to think about it anymore. The technology says, this is the root cause. This is where the blockage is coming from. And when you correct these, immediately your health's going to get better. So let's have a look at yours. When we have a look at your physical health, the first thing I see here is that your sleep quality is poor. And I'm going to share this up on the screen. So for the people who are watching, it's up on the screen. So I can see that your sleep quality is poor. And what that means is you're going to have frequent sleep issues and often feeling tired. So my question for you, Elke, is what's happening with your sleep recently?
I don't know. I thought I'd get some good sleep, but sometimes it's more. I do track sleep. I've got a tracker on. I mostly get between 6 and 8 hours sleep. Sometimes it's a bit lower, and if it is lower, usually the day or two after, the body catches up, and then I might have 8 or 9 hours sleep. But is it? I wouldn't have considered it poor sleep quality. Because I get a lot of deep sleep as well from the tracker. I see lots of phases of deep sleep rather than just the light sleep. So that's interesting.
So for you right now, the quality and the consistency of the sleep is poor. And sometimes when we just think about our sleep, we assume that it's okay. But sleep is also bi-directional, and it's impacted by the other emotions that we feel. So let's have a look at sleep quality. It's currently poor at the moment. But if we start to have a look at your emotional health, we see a different story. What I can see here is that your ability to process emotions is balanced. So what that means is that you have a very good ability to manage your emotions and balance your feelings. Inside of your mind, you can balance both logic and emotion. And so your emotional processing right now is optimal. So what we say is that that's a performance booster, which is wonderful. We can also see your frequent emotion here. Your frequent emotion is the most common emotion that came up in your analysis. And this is going to be your immediate reaction to events. And so for you, you're both theatrical and exaggerated. So these are very strong positive emotions. Now, your core emotion, these core emotions are measured from your childhood memories. Now, my technology, what it has the ability to do is it has the ability to look at your emotional memory all the way back from the final trimester in your mother's womb, all the
Wow.
way up to present time.
Okay.
And the reason why that is that the baby in utero, it starts to emit its own brain wave frequencies at the 7th month. Now, our emotions are stored in the amygdala, and there's still energy in there. So your core emotion is sometimes being stubborn and often
Yes.
in need of a challenge. Tell me about that.
Stubborn. I must have inherited a lot of that from my dad. Because I know he was, especially in his late years as well, until he became really ill. He was very stubborn, and he was not very good with his emotions. He was very, I sometimes describe him just like a wooden block. He wouldn't show him much emotion, but when he became very ill in the end, towards the end, he showed more emotion and was becoming more open and a bit less stubborn. But the stubbornness, yes, definitely. I can relate to that. That's me sometimes. Not
So
always.
that,
I've become a bit more softer, but there can be situations when I'm like not budging. It has to be a certain way.
your response to this, I love it because it's both theatrical and exaggerated. You really show that emotion. You had a big chuckle, a big laugh. And so these are both your frequent and your core emotions. And these are picked up in the 90-second voice analysis. So what you have going for you here, Elke, is you've got performance boosters in your emotional health, which is very rare. I have performed about 8 analyses today, and out of all 8, your emotional health is the best out of
Wow.
all the ones that I've seen.
Whoa. Okay.
So when we look at holistic health, we can now start to look at these in combination. Okay, so albeit sleep quality is poor, you have an excellent ability to manage your emotions. And the frequent emotions that you feel are theatrical and exaggerated. You show the emotion. And the core emotion is stubbornness, which is also okay. So here you've got some great health attributes. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Now, after we have a look at emotional health, we want to have a look at mental health. And we're looking at 3 categories here: anxiety, depression, stress, and burnout. And in the area of anxiety here, your anxiety levels are high at the moment. And what that means is that you'll often feel anxious, and that anxiety will be more difficult to manage. So recently, what are some of those anxious feelings or concerns or worries that you've had?
Oh, I had a lot of money worries since last year. I've been in some mentorship mastermind circle. I invested a lot in myself last year. Took some money out where I still had some, only for the state then to say, "Hey, we paid you tax credits." That's something that you get, like a bit of social money from the state in the UK. And they came and said, "Oh, we paid you all the tax credit money. You took all that money out. We want that tax credit money back from year 23, 24, which was over £7,000. I never had debts like that before. So that's caused me a lot of stress. And then, oh, what's all going to happen? Is the bank going to close down? Because I had a credit card, still some money on that. And I'm still in the overdraft, but it's kind of, I don't feel as anxious all the time, but there were times. I think it's eased now since I'm more frequently talking to my bank and keeping them up to date with what's going on, and it feels less intense. But last year was definitely from the 6th of May it started when the letter came in. Now we want all that money back. So yeah, I can see how there is like anxiety, worry, how that has some high ratings. But it's not an ongoing thing. As I say, I'm quite good at, managing it. When there is something that's coming up, I deal with it. And the best thing is to deal with it right away rather than leaving it, unattended. Because that then once you attend to it, get it sorted, get your questions answered, then that helps the anxiety to go down or the worry to go down.
So let me present it this way. The anxiety is high, and as you mentioned before, the stress you can manage very well. So when we have a look at your stress and burnout levels, they're moderate. So what it tells us is that although you're frequently stressed, you'll manage it. And so we call this a performance booster. Yes, anxiety is high, but you also have a strategy to manage it.
Yeah.
Where if people lack that ability to manage it, the anxiety takes control. Now, if we have a look here, you'll be able to have a look on the replay, is that when our sleep quality is poor and our anxiety is high, it has a bi-directional approach. So when our anxiety is high, we have interrupted sleep. We have disrupted sleep patterns.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. That I can relate to that. Yeah, because then at times when I had really the bad worry and stuff building up, and then it was difficult to fall asleep, and occasionally to wake up in the middle of the night with some ruminations, and then with kind of thanks to breathing exercise, things like that, on and then getting back to sleep again. So yeah, I can relate to that.
Yep. And so when we start to link it all together, people start to see the pattern. They go, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's why I find it difficult to fall asleep. There's a lot on the mind. And then I have the sleep disturbances. Okay, now I get it. Because it's all connected. And that's why when I invented this technology, I wanted holistic health. Because if we look at our sleep quality and we compartmentalize it, and we don't have a look at how our mental health can impact it, we don't see the bigger picture. But this takes us to the root cause. And what happens is, because it's bi-directional, as your sleep quality improves, the anxiety will also improve. And when the anxiety improves, the sleep quality gets better. And it's bi-directional. So the deeper we sleep, the more REM sleep we get, the better we manage our emotions. When we go into a deeper sleep, we also go into a process what's called synaptic pruning. And our mind goes in there and cuts away all those old neurological connections that don't serve us anymore. And so the deeper we sleep, the more we sleep, the easier it is to move on from the anxiety. So they're the first three components: physical, emotional, and mental. The fourth area is spiritual health. And we can see here your courage levels are moderate. So what it tells us here is you've got self-control and courage, but the blocker in this area is procrastination. And procrastination's about postponing decisions and actions. And for you right now, your procrastination levels are high. So we know that you've been frequently delaying tasks or avoiding certain tasks. What are some of those things you've been putting off?
I think some of that relates as well to that I wasn't going back to the debt stuff with the money issues, delaying calls to the bank that I should have made earlier so that the anxiety levels or worry levels could have gone down earlier, along those lines. Sometimes, I've been procrastinating with the podcast as well.
Now the
Because
truth's coming out.
no, the thing was, I did the podcast training, and I did that with the people in Progressive Success. Rob Moore, the entrepreneur who's he started in property, and then he bought up the company that does events and things, and he made it into big. So he's got progressive property, progressive success, and I did the podcast training with the people at Progressive Success in late 2023. You see where the procrastination comes from? I did it with my son because he started then to study sports broadcasting, sports business in Manchester. And I thought, hang on, this could be something for him. So I had signed up for this so that to do the training with him together, that we could both benefit from it, because there was a 2-for-1 offer for the price. So we did it together. I didn't do anything through 2024. Then the struggle started from May onwards. I still didn't do anything with that. And later, I think it was September, October, when my son said, "You're struggling so bad, Mum. You have to do that podcast now. And I'm going to be watching what you are really doing this." So he's held me accountable and always checked in. Have you done something? Have you done something? And I eventually, October, November, I started with recordings and things for the solo episodes and getting prepared to launch for January. So I've been procrastinating a lot with that one, definitely. And I haven't been getting the word of what I can offer to people and how much I can help them. I haven't been putting that out loud enough either. But I think the struggles impacted that as well to an extent. You know, the worries, the anxiety, and not necessarily any kind of imposter syndrome or anything, because the public speaking training that I did also with Progressive Success last year helped me to morph a bit more from a more 90-10 introvert more towards 60-40 now. So I'm not afraid to do videos. I'm not afraid to go on a stage to recommend something, to speak. But yeah, I haven't kind of reached out to people in the amount that I should have done and should do. That's a work in progress kind of. So there we go. Procrastination.
Good. Straight to the root cause.
Yeah.
See, there's so many other wonderful qualities, but there can just be one thing holding us back.
Yeah.
And when we link it all together, what happens is there's a bidirectional response here between sleep quality, anxiety, and procrastination. So when we procrastinate, we start to go into avoidance behaviors, and we experience what's called perfectionism paralysis. The perfectionism paralysis gives us cognitive overload, and we have excess activity inside the amygdala. Now, when we try to go to sleep because there's so much on our mind, it's hard to get to sleep, and then it's hard to stay asleep. And all of those three things are connected. Does that make more sense now from a holistic health perspective?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, makes complete sense to me.
And that's why I love this technology. It just takes us to the root cause. Okay, that's working for me. That's neutral. But those three things there, that's the root cause. Now, if I can get the procrastination under control and move from avoidance to action, automatically the anxiety levels are going to drop down because that perfectionism paralysis disappears. Once the anxiety drops down, the sleep quality picks up because the mind is calm when we go to sleep. And that's why I say that this is one of the most important pieces of technology available to us, because we've been having a conversation around this for 25 minutes. Mm-hmm. But this information came from 90 seconds of voice analysis. And this is why I say that if I spend 20 minutes with somebody, they can learn more about themselves in 20 minutes than they could possibly learn in 20 years of self-discovery. It's right there. And even if somebody lacks emotional intelligence, it takes them right there. The answers are there.
Yeah,
the science
it is
shows
pretty
us.
impressive.
Yep. So the future of this field, Elke, and what I say is we trust in science. This artificial intelligence, this is not just something that's being developed today. Like my technology has been developed by some of the biggest and brightest minds around the world for the past 40 years. Some of the smartest doctors and scientists coming out of the top universities in Europe. And it's now with vocal biomarker technology, it's now with AI that we can now give you access to this technology from your smartphone. So 90 seconds.
Pretty cool.
And we get all of that. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And this is the best place to start for everybody. If people are stuck, they don't know what to do next, this is where you should start.
Yeah.
It gives you a roadmap for clarity.
It is. Yeah. I'm very, very impressed. Very impressed. And I can see how much a huge benefit for the general health sector from, showing people within such a short time what their issues are, where the root causes are. And the root causes, to find the root causes is so important to get better health, better mental health, better emotional health, spiritual health. So yeah, and the 4 areas I definitely relate to as well, that it is all connected. Everything is connected.
And this is the beauty about technology today, is we bring it all into one place. And this is holistic health. And for those 97% of the population who go to their doctor for stress, anxiety, and depression, and they can't get help, this can help you. It's 90 seconds. You don't have to line up to go to the doctor. You don't have to wait hours for an appointment. You don't have to be referred to this doctor and that doctor and walk out with 11 different referrals to 11 different specialists, and you've got to wait 6 months. You can have it now.
Yeah, and they still don't get to it, even if you go to them.
No, because you need 11 different people, but that's the power. And this is why I say trust in science. The science can get us there faster. And this tool was designed to detect health imbalances in 90 seconds. And it's so affordable. People can get their hands on this technology for $47.
Is that all?
That's it.
Wow.
All of that. It's cost hundreds of millions of dollars to develop over the years.
Yeah.
But now you can get it from a fraction of the price. And like we're doing today, you can meet one of my frequency health analysis anywhere in the world in any time zone. And you get your results in seconds. And this is going to be the biggest breakthrough. And we have our technology in hospitals here in Taiwan.
Right.
And they're loving it. And this will be rolled out into the hospitals very shortly. We have a partnership with an AI-based hospital. Okay. 15 stories high, all AI-driven healthcare.
Okay. Is that here in Taiwan?
In Taiwan, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and our patients in our hospitals are already using our Mind Report technology. You use the Mind Report technology with Coach Vicky Henderson. So we already have that in the hospitals. This one will also be putting in the AI-based hospital, and then we'll spread that out through many hospitals throughout the world.
Oh, I hope this will really take off, because I think this is absolutely fantastic.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic. What I have to say as well is I like the approach of Eastern medicine as opposed to the Western medicine. There is more connection still with nature and with how nature works, as in how the human organism works, whereas the Western medicine system, I've done research on the history on that, so how it was all kind of taken over and taken away from a more holistic way into a more pharma-based way. And I prefer to look at it more in what the Eastern medicine does.
Well, Nini, my wife, she's completing her Masters of Psychology at the moment. So she's Taiwanese and she's studying at the Arizona State University. And the professors at the Arizona State University are loving her insights on emotional intelligence, because she's bringing the holistic and the Eastern approach to Western psychology. And what we're seeing right now is we're seeing a fusion of East and West coming together. Even the hospitals here using this approach is opening up their minds, because they're seeing it differently. I'm working close with doctors and scientists developing this technology, and they're both working in the Eastern world and the European world. So we're seeing this fusion at the moment. And it's all
That's
tied
good.
into both Eastern and Western medicine, because doctors also are getting frustrated that they don't want to constantly provide a prescription to somebody. And they know that they can prescribe somebody sleep medication and it doesn't change the root cause. And doctors have a code. Doctors have a code of practice, and it's called primum non nocere. And primum non nocere means never knowingly do harm. And if you're an empathetic doctor and you've got a heart, and you're also a values-driven doctor, and ecology is important to you, then it makes it very hard to dispense medicine knowing that it's not going to help somebody. It's only going to hurt them. And we're seeing doctors love this because they're like, oh, wow, this is a breakthrough. We don't study that, but this technology can solve that problem. Let the patient use it. And so the doctors and the hospitals love it.
Absolutely brilliant. I really hope it will take off. Even it needs to come to the UK. We've got a lot backlog of waiting lists for the more hospitals and serious people with serious health issues as well. And it's a problem to get doctor's appointments, even, especially since I don't use the C word very much, but since March 2020, I'm sure that's definitely something to you. Since then, it's gone worse with getting appointments. They're doing like phone consultations, and even if you're on the phone with them or you're doing a Zoom call, they won't see exactly what they might see when you would be face to face with them. It's all gone downhill, and they're investing in things that are not really that essential, rather than, investing in, I don't know, things I don't see necessarily that important. So
Well, the
yeah,
difference between the Western model and the Eastern model, the Western model is based on business.
yes,
Because if
farmers a
somebody's
business.
if
Farmers a
somebody's sick,
business. It's not healthcare.
Robert F. Kennedy said the most profitable thing in the world is a sick child.
Yes.
Because once they indoctrinate them into the medical system, they're a customer for life.
Yeah.
Where the Eastern model is they want to work with the root cause, and so you can heal yourself. People like Dr. Joe Dispenza says you have the ability to heal yourself.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference.
And he's the best example for that. His story is how he used the mind to heal himself, where the doctors told him he would need a serious operation, and even that wouldn't kind of guarantee that we'd be back to, and he did it within weeks.
We can all heal ourselves. Our first piece of technology is the mind report, and this is to detect health imbalances. And then what we also have is a tool to correct those health imbalances. And so for people who are having a sleep problem, we have vibrational medicine to initiate self-healing to solve that. For people who are experiencing anxiety, we have technology to correct that. For people who are procrastinating, we have technology to correct that. And it's called vibrational medicine. And you only have to use your ears for a change. Einstein said everything's a vibration. Everything's a frequency. And through vibrational medicine, which we call sound frequency therapy, we can correct all of these shortfalls that we detect in 90 seconds. And to correct it only takes 15 minutes using your ears.
Is it like a certain, do you need a special device for that kind of links in with that kind of touches the head as well, where you kind of get the brain frequencies measured, something like that?
That's the old way. The new
way. The old way, okay.
That's the old way. The new way is with sound frequency immunotherapy. All we have to do is use our ears. So my team of doctors and scientists, what they have created is what's called an alignment protocol. Okay. And the alignment protocol is vibrational medicine. And just by putting on our headphones and listening to a series of healing frequencies, we can remove bad habits, we can restore health, and we can release happy hormones.
Mm.
And that just takes 15 minutes a day.
Is that 90-day protocol that
This
I
is
saw
a
there, or is that
28-day
a 28-day? Right.
protocol.
Uh-huh.
So with sound frequency immunotherapy, within the first 5 minutes, it takes the anxiety out of the body and initiates a process called self-healing. Neuroplasticity also gets activated, and it reshapes and upgrades the way that the brain functions. Children who have ADD, ADHD, if they just do 2 10-minute sessions a day 3 times a week, that'll calm down those out of control behavioural traits. People with Parkinson's disease, just in a matter of minutes, it can reduce the signs and symptoms and the shakes that they experience with Parkinson's disease. Within 15 minutes of listening to our sound frequency immunotherapy, you get whole brain activation, meaning that you get full communication from the left and right hemispheres of the brain. And that starts to heal the body. So you can remove bad habits, you can restore your health, and you can also release happy hormones. No pills, no medicine, just your ears. And that you can start at about $97 for a 28-day protocol. So it's within reach for everybody.
Still a good price.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. Yeah. Considering how, for some treatments now, even when you go private and things, that costs quite a lot more if you want treatments. So that is very impressive. Very impressive. Yeah.
And when I created these technologies, I wanted everybody to have access to it. Ninny and I believe that everybody wants better health. And if we can make sure that health is in the price range of everybody, everybody can have it.
Yeah.
You can detect your health imbalances and you can correct them at the same time. So simple.
This is fantastic. This is fantastic, and it needs to be put out to the world. So I look forward to showing this podcast, getting this podcast out to the world for people to listen and to watch and to discover what is possible now with the help of AI. So the AI critics, shut up for once. Well, Daniel, that brings us towards the end of the podcast episode today. Is there anything that you want to promote? I know you we talked a lot about your program and things, and where can people reach out to you? What else do you want to mention to promote?
Well, what I'd like them to do is, if you want to have better health, then go to my website, danieltolson.com. And on the top right-hand side, you'll see the words alignment assessment. And that's where you should start. And go to the website and I'll take you through the exact same experience Elke had today. We'll have a look at your holistic health in 4 of the most important areas, and we'll get to the root cause in seconds. And that's available directly off the website.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I hope a lot of people will take up this offer and do their assessments. It is well worth it. As you've seen today, to have that assessment done, and as well the mind, what was the other one? The mind
report. Yes,
the
that's
mind
the
report.
8-page
Yes,
one.
that's the other one. Yeah. And do the mind report as well. It is so insightful. It is very precise. There was not a lot that I could say that I thought would not apply. So I could relate to everything perfectly. Go to danieltolson.com, do your assessments, and find out more about your health. Thank you so much for being on my podcast today, Daniel.
Thanks, Elke. Let's do it again. Thank you.
Let's do it again. Yes.